Well, welcome to Varsity Interviews. This week I have Miss Maxine Bozzi with us, and we've got our same set of questions, and we're going to just get started with her. And so, Miss Maxine, thank you for coming out and being a part of this, letting me do this with you.
Thank you for asking.
All right, well, first of all, let's jump right into it. Tell us about where you were born and your growing up years.
I grew up in Suwannee County in Florida. That's West Florida area along the Suwannee River. I was born in South Florida, but my dad moved back to the farm when I was just a baby. So I actually grew up in Suwannee County on a farm. My mother became ill when I was 12, and I missed part of a grade, staying home and watching after her and taking care of 3 preschoolers.
Oh my goodness.
So that was an experience for a 12-year-old who wanted to play. But it helped me as far as my schooling was concerned. It gave me a little time, extra time to grow up some. So when I went back to school, I was really motivated to study.
Good. Well, that's a big responsibility on a 12-year-old, but you had to do what you had to do.
You did back then, as today. We do what is needed.
Well, tell me about people. We all have people that impact us in different ways as we think back on our lives, and it seems like God puts key people in our path. Usually our parents, but sometimes others even outside of our immediate family. Can you think of someone outside of your immediate family that had a big impact on you as a young person?
Yes, a lady in our church named Christy Dorset. Her daughters were my age, and so we had a lot in common. We played together, we did Girl Scouts together, but Mrs. Dorset was a very second mother to me, and she and my mama were close, so she influenced the young girls in a good way.
That's great. Tell me about, now you said you didn't have much chance to be a little kid because you had a lot of grown-up responsibilities thrown on you, but when you did get a chance to play or have activities or do games, what did you enjoy doing?
We loved dolls, and we played dolls and sewed for our dolls and played jacks, which I don't think kids know anything about jacks now, but that was quite a nice thing for young girls to play.
Yeah.
Was jacks, and you could have 2 people playing or even more. We did puzzles, crossword puzzles, and also jigsaw puzzles, and that was a nice thing to have a puzzle set up and work on that when you finally had a free moment.
That's great. Yeah, I don't think the kids would know what jacks are.
They wouldn't, I'm sure.
Tell us, walk us through your salvation experience. Was there a particular moment or situation, or sometimes it's like a revival service or a camp experience or vacation Bible school or something that is sort of that moment when we feel the calling of the Lord on our lives. But tell us your experience of coming to know the Lord.
After my mama got sick, we left the farm and moved to Branford, which was a small town on the Suwannee River. And then I started going to church regularly. When we were on the farm, there wasn't always transportation to get to church, so it was not a very regular attendance. But then in Branford, I could walk to church, and we all did. All the family walked to church, and it was a regular thing, Sunday school and worship, church training, morning service, evening service. And I accepted Christ when I was 13 and felt really strongly about missions. that God wanted me to do something with my life as far as going into missions or serving in some way. And as long as I lived in Branford, I was a regular attender to the Baptist church there.
Very good. Did you ever do any sort of missions work yourself, or I know you support missions, I know you do a lot of things in that regard. Did you ever do any mission work or mission trips yourself?
Not before I was in nursing school. I went to nursing school and in Atlanta, Georgia, at Georgia Baptist Hospital, a wonderful hospital program. You did a lot of work. You only paid a small amount of tuition each year. And the Baptist Student Union had mission trips. And we also had a missions Sunday afternoon mission worship service, actually Sunday school and church, for children in a deprived area of Atlanta. And the whole time I was in nursing school, which was 3 years, we were involved in that mission action program for the children of this particular community.
Well, that's awesome. Fantastic.
It was lovely.
Yeah.
We loved it. We were young and just
young, energetic, and
had a lot
time
of
to
energy,
do
had a
it,
lot,
and,
yeah, loved the Lord. The kids were sweet. Just had a good time.
Let's talk about your spouse. How did you meet your spouse? What attracted you to your spouse?
I was working in a hospital in Jacksonville, Florida after my first year at Stetson. I was working as a nurse's aide night, and I met my first husband then through a friend.
What was his name?
Owen Hunt.
Oh,
Yes. Years later we divorced, but at that time we dated for all the time I went through nursing school and back at Stetson for a couple of years, and finally got married and had 2 children who grew up in Stetson Baptist Church.
now you made your way to DeLand when you came as a student at Stetson?
Yes. And then I came back to DeLand after splitting with Owen. My first husband came back to DeLand with my children and started attending Stetson Baptist Church. When I was here as a student, I went to First Baptist DeLand. It was close, we could walk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was easy.
You know, a lot of people confuse our church with First Baptist.
First Baptist, yes. It was a mission. When I was at Stetson the first year, Stetson Baptist Church was just a mission of First Baptist Church. And unless you had a car, it was just a little bit too far to walk from downtown where the Stetson University is. So many of the students went to First Baptist Church when we were there in school.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yes. But I've loved Stetson Baptist Church. My kids grew up here. It's been a good worship experience for me.
About what year did you and your children start going to Stetson?
That was probably in 1944.
1944.
Yeah. My youngest son was only 2 years old then. And my daughter was like 7. And
World War II was raging.
Mm-hmm.
And I know
I
those.
guess that was 1964. Sorry about that. My daughter was born in 1957, and my son was born in 1964. It's been a long time ago to remember.
Okay. Well, I was going to be highly impressed.
Yeah,
if it
you
was...
were, weren't you? You know I'm not that old. I'm old, but not quite that old.
Okay. All right. Let's see. You talked about college, the school in Atlanta. Were there any other education besides that and Stetson?
No.
Okay.
When I got my diploma, my nursing diploma, I came back to Stetson and worked in the infirmary as a nurse, and that paid my tuition for the rest of the time I was at Stetson. And I finished at Stetson with a major in biology.
And how long did you do nursing?
Off and on for a long time. I can't remember the time. My last experience was at what was then West Volusia Hospital here in DeLand. I worked 10 years after that, was following my divorce from Owen.
Did you ever work with Mary Waller?
No, we never really worked together. Maybe when I was at Stetson, we may have worked at a little hospital in DeLand called Fish Hospital. But I can't remember really working with her.
Okay.
And we graduated from different schools.
Okay. So how many children do you have? Is it 3?
I have 2 children.
2. And do you have any funny stories to tell us about them and growing up? And
Well, not really. I don't think they'd appreciate it. They were good kids. We had lots of fun together.
Good.
During the summers, we went to the beach a lot because I wasn't working outside the home, and it was really nice because I could be at home. One time I wasn't there when my son came home from school, and he was just of grade school age, I guess. And he said, "Mama, I don't like it when you're not here when I get home from school." He said, it doesn't seem right. So, but I was able not to have to work during my kids' growing up years. So we had lots of fun together.
Good, good. You mentioned your divorce from Owen. So how long, what was the period of time between that divorce and
marrying Mike?
Yes.
Yes. 10 plus years. I didn't think I would ever remarry.
And tell me about Mike and how that came about.
Mike was just a sweet guy. An air traffic control supervisor, worked in Orlando at the tower there. We met at the DeLand airport. I had taken some flying lessons, and I belonged to a group.
Wait a minute, flying lessons? Well, we're going to have to get into that in a minute.
Yeah, we won't go there. That was just before my divorce. Before my husband said, "I don't love you anymore," I had just started flying lessons because I thought, and he was a pilot, private pilot. I thought, if something happened to him, I need to know how to land a plane. So that was my motivation for starting flying lessons. Well, then here came the separation, but since I had started the flying lessons, I hated to start something I never finished. So I did finish and get my private pilot's license. I never really flew much. It was fun, but there were other things that were more important along the way. So I went back to work, like I said, just to feel like I was worth something, because at this time I was feeling very, very low and of no worth whatsoever. So I went back to work, and I was working nights, and I couldn't fly and work nights. Nights wiped me out. I don't know how anybody does it.
No, I don't either. My
But
dad
anyway,
worked
that was
shift
my
work.
story about
Yeah.
flying lessons.
So if we're ever on a mission trip together, flying in South America or somewhere, and the pilot goes down, I can call on you to help.
Maybe I can land. It's been a long time. I don't think you ever lose that skill, actually.
It's like riding a bicycle.
Right.
All right. Did you ever have any brush with a celebrity, a famous person throughout your life?
I can't say I have.
I can't say that I have either.
My life has been really a joy. God has been so good to me, and you know, that's what's important.
Absolutely. What were you doing when you got the news that President Kennedy had been shot?
Owen, my first husband, was a general practitioner, a doctor. We were living in Branford. He was there as a doctor, set up a practice there. And I was walking along the sidewalk, going somewhere there in the little town, when the news came that he was assassinated.
That was a scary time.
That was a tragic time.
I imagine it's in some ways similar to the 2001 World Trade Center situation, where you really felt vulnerable as an American.
Yes.
That something like this could happen in our country.
I think it left our nation feeling numb and, yes, vulnerable.
I guess the two things I remember similar to that would be the World Trade Center, but also the Space Shuttle Challenger explosion too.
Yes. Yeah, I was working. Happened to look out the window, working at West Volusia nights. And it was early in the morning, and you know, that was always a nice time to see the daylight coming. Looked out the window and saw it explode.
Oh my word, you were an eyewitness to it.
Yeah, it was really not realizing what had actually happened until we got the news what had really happened with it.
Tell me about Christmas traditions. Did your family have anything special you enjoyed doing as a family each year around Christmas?
We always put up the tree, and the kids, which was 7 children in my family, we loved decorating. And Mama always did a big dinner, a delicious fruitcake. That was a tradition. Everything that the Southerners would eat at Christmas time, we would try to have, even though we didn't have a whole lot of money. Our parents provided for us, and we never went to bed hungry, which was a blessing. I think about that now, with so many children who are hungry.
Yeah.
And our parents provided. God provided, actually, through our parents.
Very good. I mean, I love Christmas.
I do too. It's very special.
Did you ever take any family vacations that were, just really stand out in your mind of great memories shared together?
Not really. We didn't go on vacations back then. Families just, you worked hard, you had very little, and vacation, what is that?
Yeah.
You just... But as an adult, we went on some vacations. Mike and I went to Italy for our honeymoon, visited his family in southern Italy, and went to France for a couple of days. And that was...
You married an Italian.
Yes, very Italian.
So did Charlie. So
Yeah, that's right.
Charlie Arlotta.
Yeah, she did.
That's neat. So you got to see Italy.
Yes.
Did you get to see any sites as far as things we would think of in the scripture, in the Bible?
Yeah, we
think
did.
of Rome,
Yeah, we stayed in Rome for 2 or 3 days, and we went to supposedly Paul's tomb. That's in one of the churches there, the basement. We did went to Pompeii, to the
the volcano.
Yes. Yeah, his first cousins lived in southern Italy, and we could see Vesuvius from their balcony. It never erupted, thank goodness. They kept checking it, and I guess they still do.
That's right. My next question was, have you ever traveled outside the United States? Was Italy your only trip outside the United States?
Yes, it was.
Any awards or achievements that you earned over the years through school or other things?
Not that I recall. I was a pretty good student, but that was...
Well, you got the degree, though, right?
Yes, I got the degree.
Let's see. Did you ever play any type of organized sports, or
I played basketball in high school.
did you?
Most of the girls did. And we had a pretty good team,
Great.
but that was probably all the organized sports that I really played.
Are you Florida State, or some other team?
How about the Gators?
The Gators. Okay.
Mike was such a Gator fan, and it just, I couldn't be anything else.
You had to declare one way or the other.
Yes, I did.
Favorite foods? Any particular dish you enjoy or enjoy making, or was there a particular treat you loved as a child?
I just love to cook, and as a kid, my sister and I, in the afternoon, would mix peanut butter and honey and butter all together and put it on saltine crackers. I remember that as such a lovely, and sit at the table, and here we would eat this. That was such a nice treat.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good.
It was
Yeah.
delicious. You need to try it.
I do. Let's see here. This is an important question I've asked everyone so far. Does toilet paper roll off the top or under the bottom?
It's got to roll off the top.
Okay.
Else you can't find the end when you need it.
Do you have hobbies, talents that you use, that you enjoy, just maybe enjoy some free time?
I love crocheting.
You
I
crochet.
love knitting.
Knitting.
And I love our crochet knitting group. If anybody out there is interested,
That's right. Tell us a little bit about that. How did that get started, by the way?
had lots of crochet, lots of yarn. And a couple of friends of mine here in the Betty Orr and Leona Clark, and I can't think of anyone else right off, got together and decided we'd have a crochet knitting group to use up all this yarn that we had on hand that we didn't know what to do with. We had made blankets for all of our family, and they didn't need anything. So we heard of a need at Boggy Creek camp, a camp that Paul Newman had for children who had life-threatening problems. Heard that they needed blankets, crocheted blankets. They wanted a blanket for each bed and for the child to take home with them. So we did lots of crochet blankets for Boggy Creek.
That must have been hundreds, right?
Quite a few. We had lots of ladies. We'd have like a dozen ladies meeting once a month or twice a month.
How fast could you churn out blankets? I mean,
Not very fast. But you know, when you're retired and you have lots of time on your hands, you can sit and do for a couple of hours, several days a week.
Yeah.
So now we still have this group going, and we formed it in 1990 something. But now we support the Crisis Pregnancy Center called Grace House with blankets for babies, caps for babies, things like that. We send mittens and caps and scarves to a place in Vermont that gives these to needy children and adults. And we send quite a few of these things there to a lady that we have connection with. It's a service for needy children, actually I think sponsored by the firemen in that town. But this lady helps with it and helps some of her friends support it. And we send or take blankets to the to a nursing home here in the land. We also help with hospice, take blankets for the beds at the hospice, usually at the center in between the land and Orlando. Not Orlando, Orange City. Orange City.
Out on Veterans Boulevard?
Yeah. Right.
So if somebody's watching this and they've gotten into crocheting or knitting and they want to be a part of this group, how would they do that?
They can call the church office, but we meet the first and third Thursdays of each month in room 205 at 10 o'clock.
205 at 10 o'clock on the first and
third
Thursdays of each month. Very good. Where are your children living? How often do you get to see them?
My son lives in Lake Helen, works in Ormond Beach. My daughter lives with me now that Mike is dead. And we see each other quite often. My son calls me every afternoon on his way home from work to check to make sure I'm okay.
That's great.
And it's nice to have my daughter with me.
Yeah, so you've got them very close.
Very close.
Very fortunate. I know we have some couples in our church that have no children close by, and that does make it a lot harder. Yeah. What would you say is your proudest achievement that that the Lord's done through your life?
He's blessed me. I don't know that I've achieved, according to worldly standards, anything particular, but He's used me. I love working with kids, especially preschoolers. They're my heart. I did Mission Friends for years. I did GAs way back when.
So you've had a huge impact on young people over the years.
Well, I've enjoyed it. It's a pleasure to see these young women now that were GAs for me in my group years ago here in the church serving the Lord. It really makes you feel good.
Yes,
makes me feel
absolutely.
good.
That's great. That's great. What would you say is your favorite Bible verse and why?
I love Isaiah. I have a lot of favorite Bible verses, but a special one for me is the gentleness of Jesus. In Isaiah 42:3, I believe it is, it says that He will not break a bent reed or snuff out a smoldering candle. And to me, that just tells me how gentle Jesus is.
Well, I have never heard that verse. I mean, I remember reading that passage and those words.
I think it's in Isaiah 42.
But wow, that's I've got to look it up now.
Yeah, you will. I think it's 42:3. Look it
Isaiah
up.
42:3.
Jesus is so gentle, and God is so gentle, and keeps drawing us to Him, no matter what we've done, and makes me want to cry because it's so special.
Well, there is so much in Isaiah about Jesus.
Oh, yes.
My goodness.
I love Isaiah 42. That's been one of my favorite passages for years and years, where it says that He'll hold us up on eagle's wings. It's hard for me to remember now exactly how it goes. But
Isaiah 40:31.
that's it.
They that wait upon the
There
Lord
you
shall
go.
renew their
Thank
strength.
you for your help.
Yeah, mount
Yeah.
up with wings like
Yeah.
eagles. I know it's
Run
interesting.
and not be weary, walk and not faint.
I had a preacher explain one time. He said, I don't know if you noticed the progression in that verse, but we mount up with wings as eagles, then we run, and then we walk. And he said it's sort of like, that excitement of becoming a newborn Christian, and then running and having the endurance to fight the daily battles that we face, and then finally being able to walk by the Lord's side, having run the race and facing the difficulties. And then you get into Ephesians and talking about spiritual warfare and saying, after we put on the armor of God, we're able to stand. Against the enemy. Yeah. And so, very interesting how he put that together. But all through Isaiah, such an amazing book
Yes.
of prophesying about the Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an interesting verse. 42.
42, maybe 3.
Okay. I'll have to look that up.
Look
for
that
sure.
up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, those are all of my questions. Did you have anything else you wanted to share with those that may be watching? Just tell them a little bit more about your life, or anything you want to share?
Not really.
Okay.
I just
it's
encourage everybody just to stay close to God.
Yes.
Depend on Him and not run into tomorrow. But like Paul said, tomorrow will take care of itself. It has enough trouble. Today has enough trouble of its own.
I love that that little phrase, sufficient to the day is the evil thereof.
Yes.
And, well, that is true, isn't it?
It is very true, very true. I do worry about tomorrow lots of times. Catch myself worrying about tomorrow and just giving it to God many times during the day. Sometimes a thing that's bothering me. But He doesn't mind.
Yeah.
That I come to Him 1,000 times a day with the same thing, asking Him to handle it. He handles it anyway, but He gives us comfort.
Yeah. Some of us tend to worry more than others, but it helps me to think about the idea that there's no sense worrying over something I have no control over, And there are things we control, but there are a lot of things we have no control over.
Yeah.
And
that's easier said than done.
That is
right?
easier said than done.
Yeah.
But it helps me to know that the Lord is already 10 years down the road. He's already there.
From
time
the
makes
beginning,
no difference to
difference to Him. No.
And so that's a comfort to me to know that He's already seen the end of my days, however long that may be. And He's right there waiting to welcome me. And he walks beside me. And though I often sin and turn away from Him and I get distracted by other things, He never leaves me.
Right.
I may stray, but he always pulls me back, and He always reminds me that He's there.
Yeah,
and
always.
He loves us.
And He's so gentle with us, even though I mess up so many times. He's still right there. He doesn't push me down. He doesn't tell me I'm a bad girl. He just loves me.
He does, and that's hard for us to accept and understand.
Yeah.
But well, Miss Maxine, thank you so much. I've been blessed just sitting talking with you today, and I know a lot of people will be. And I hope that some of you who may be watching this will feel that I could come do that, sit down with Pastor Wayne and be interviewed, because I want us to grow together, to closer together as a community of believers. And sometimes that's just as simple as having a conversation like this and getting to know one another a little better.
Right.
And when we do that, we develop those lifelong friendships. And of course, as believers, we have a bond that goes beyond what anyone else can share through Christ. And it helps a little bit to just take the time to get to know one another and share in each other's lives. So that's my goal for these conversations, these interviews, and we look forward to some more in the future. So thank you for watching, and when you get a chance, when you see Maxine, say hello to her, introduce yourself, and we'll get to know each other a little bit better.
This has been very nice. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it.